On Christmas morning, instead of love or gratitude, my siblings handed me nothing but insults. I smiled through the pain, said nothing, and let them laugh. But what they didn't know was that I had come prepared. And when I finally handed them, each an envelope, the game changed forever. You won't believe what happened next. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel, and let me know where you're listening from in the comments. My name is Evelyn. I'm 34 years old, the oldest of 3 siblings, and the truth is I've spent my entire adult life playing a role I never asked for: mother, provider, protector. When our parents passed away in a car accident, I was just 19, barely old enough to take care of myself, and suddenly, I had 2 younger siblings depending on me for everything. Rachel was only 15, still in high school, fragile and lost. Aaron was barely 10, still a child who cried himself to sleep at night calling for a mother. I didn't have time to cry. I didn't have time to process. Overnight, I had to become the adult, the one who worked, cooked, paid bills, and kept the family afloat. I took on 2 jobs. During the day, I worked at a small accounting firm as a junior assistant. At night, I waited tables until past midnight. I came home exhausted, my feet aching, my eyes burning, but I'd still wake up early to make sure Rachel had lunch for school, and Aaron had his homework done. I clipped coupons, learned how to stretch $1 until it tore, and skipped meals more times than I'd like to admit just so they could eat. College, parties, dating, those weren't options for me. I told myself it was okay. That one day, when they were older and successful, it would all be worth it. That my sacrifice would mean something. And for years I believed it did. When Rachel graduated high school, I cried harder than she did. When Aaron made it into college, I worked extra shifts to cover the gap his scholarship didn't. Every achievement they had felt like my achievement too. Every smile on their faces made me forget how tired and lonely I was. But somewhere along the line, things changed. At first, it was little things. Rachel rolling her eyes when I reminded her to call home. Aaron sighing when I asked about his classes. They forgot birthdays, stopped saying thank you, started treating me less like a sister who had sacrificed everything, and more like some nuisance in the background. Still, I told myself it was fine. They were young. They didn't understand. They'd realize one day. That's what I told myself. Until this Christmas, I decorated the house like I always did. The same house I had worked myself to the bone to keep after our parents died. Twinkling lights framed the windows, the scent of cinnamon filled the air, and the tree stood proudly in the living room, covered with ornaments collected through the years. Some of them, little paper cutouts and glitter crafts, were made by their tiny hands when they were children. Every time I looked at them, I remembered those early days when we still felt like a family. I stayed up late baking cookies, the same recipes Mom used to make, and wrapped thoughtful gifts I could barely afford. For Rachel, a leather journal I knew she'd love. For Aaron, a sleek watch, something to remind him of the one Dad used to wear. I told myself this year would be different. This year, maybe they'd appreciate me. When they arrived, my hope started to unravel almost immediately. Rachel walked in first, perfectly dressed in a new coat that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She glanced around the living room and smirked. Wow, Ev, you still put up the same old decorations? It's like stepping into a time capsule from 2005. Aaron followed, barely looking at me before dropping his bag on the couch. You made cookies again? God, don't you get tired of doing the same thing every year? He said it like my effort was a joke. I forced a smile, hugging them anyway. Merry Christmas. I'm glad you're here. We sat together, cocoa steaming in mugs, but the warmth wasn't in the room. It was all sarcasm, jabs, little barbs meant to sting. Still working at that boring little office job? Rachel asked, her voice dripping with mockery. You've really gone places, huh? Aaron chuckled. She probably likes it. Less stress, less responsibility. Not everyone's cut out for success. Their laughter cut through me sharper than any knife. When it came time to exchange gifts, my heart pounded with nervous excitement. Maybe the presents would turn things around. Maybe they'd see that I still listened, still cared. Rachel tore open hers first. She stared at the journal, then scoffed. A notebook? Seriously? What am I supposed to do with this? You couldn't at least get something useful. Aaron opened his watch box, held it up, and laughed. This looks cheap. Did you buy it at a flea market? Come on, Ev. The laughter bubbled again. I smiled weakly, whispering I just thought of Dad, and how much you used to love his watch. Aaron shrugged, tossing it onto the table. That's when I excused myself to the kitchen, my hands shaking as I picked up the next tray of cookies. And that's when I heard them. Rachel's voice, sharp and amused. She's pathetic. She still acts like Mom, like we need her to take care of us. Aaron laughed. Yeah, she just wants to feel important. Truth is, she's a burden. Always will be. My chest tightened, my vision blurred, but I stayed still, clutching the counter until my knuckles turned white. A burden. That's what I was to them. When I walked back into the living room, my smile was calm. Too calm. Because in that moment, I knew something they didn't. I had come prepared. And by the end of Christmas Day, they'd regret every cruel word they'd ever spoken. The wrapping paper was scattered on the floor, their gifts discarded like useless trash. Rachel was scrolling on her phone, barely glancing at me, while Aaron lounged back on the couch, smirking at some inside joke he had texted to a friend. To them, Christmas morning was over. To me, it was only beginning. I sat there quietly, sipping lukewarm cocoa, my smile still fixed in place like a mask. They didn't notice the tremor in my hands or the way my eyes lingered on them a little too long. That was fine. I didn't want them to notice. Instead, I let my thoughts wander. I remembered the nights I stayed awake until dawn, balancing the bills on a cheap calculator, trying to stretch my paycheck far enough to cover rent, groceries, school supplies, and the endless little emergencies that came with raising two siblings. The time Rachel needed braces I took out a loan, one I'm still paying off, so her smile could be perfect. The time Aaron needed new shoes for basketball tryouts, I wore the same worn-out flats for 3 years straight, so he could feel confident stepping onto the court. They had no idea how many things I denied myself. The college acceptance letters I threw away because tuition money became grocery money. The nights I turned down invitations from friends because I couldn't afford a drink, let alone a social life. The relationships that fell apart because no one wanted to date a 19-year-old girl already saddled with the responsibility of 2 kids. All of it, every sacrifice, every compromise I did for them. And yet, here they sat, mocking me as if I were some failure who had never done enough. Aaron broke my thoughts with a laugh. So, Ev, when are you finally gonna move out of this shoebox house? It's depressing. Rachel smirked without looking up from her phone. She can't. She probably can't afford anywhere else. You know she's still stuck in that dead-end job. My fingers tightened around the mug. Dead-end job. Depressing house. Pathetic burden. The words echoed louder and louder in my head until my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. But on the outside, I smiled sweetly and said nothing. I had learned over the years that silence was a weapon, one they didn't even see coming. After a few minutes, I excused myself to the kitchen again. I stood there, staring at the tray of untouched cookies, my reflection blurry in the oven door. My siblings' laughter carried down a hallway like sharp blades slicing through my calm. And yet, underneath the sting, something else was blooming. Not despair, not sadness, resolve. Because what they didn't know was that I had been preparing for this moment long before they walked through my front door. 2 weeks earlier, I had been lying awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to shake a thought that haunted me. What if they never change? What if all my sacrifices were wasted on people who didn't care, who never would? That night, instead of crying, I made a decision. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to bend or break for them. I was going to stand tall, and if they wanted to laugh at me, they would laugh right into the consequences I had prepared. I smiled to myself as I reached into the cabinet above the fridge, where 3 plain white envelopes rested, their names written on the front in my neat handwriting. My secret weapons. Not money. Not sentimental letters. No, what those envelopes contained would cut deeper than any gift ever could. I brushed my fingers across them lightly before closing the cabinet door again. Not yet. Timing was everything. When I returned to the living room, Rachel glanced up briefly. You're awfully quiet, Ev. What's wrong? Did we hurt your feelings? Her tone was playful, cruel in a way only she could manage. Erin chuckled. Come on, you know she loves being the victim. She thrives on it. Their laughter filled the room again, and I sank into the armchair, calm as a still pond. Inside, though, the storm was gathering strength. I let their words wash over me, let them believe they were winning, because in a way, they were right. I had always played the victim, the selfless sister, the martyr, the one who gave and gave until there was nothing left. But not anymore, not today. I looked around the room, at the decorations I had carefully placed, at the old ornaments they mocked, at the house I had fought so hard to keep. Every corner of this space told the story of my sacrifices. And soon, they would realize just how much those sacrifices had cost them too. Erin stretched lazily, yawning. So, Ev, what are we doing for dinner? Please tell me you didn't make that dried-out turkey again. Rachel wrinkled her nose. Yeah, maybe we should just order out. I can't do another one of her traditional meals. Honestly, it's embarrassing. Their words barely stung now. I was past the point of hurt. I was standing at the edge of something sharper, something stronger. I took a slow sip of cocoa, the sweetness coating my tongue like armor. Then I smiled. Dinner will be ready soon, I said calmly. But before that, I have one last gift for you both. Their heads turned, curiosity flickering in their eyes for the first time all morning. Rachel arched a brow. Another sweater. Erin smirked. If it's socks, I'm leaving. I laughed softly, shaking my head. No. This one's different. Very different. Their attention lingered on me now, the mockery fading just slightly into intrigue. I leaned back in my chair, the glow of the Christmas lights casting a halo around me. For years, I had been the tired sister, the pushover, the one they thought would never stand up for herself. But tonight, they were going to see me for what I truly was. Not a victim, not a burden, but the storm they never saw coming. And as they laughed lightly, still convinced this was some silly game, I felt my heartbeat slow, steady, certain. They thought Christmas morning was over. But the real gift, the one they would never forget, was only just about to begin. The glow from the Christmas tree flickered softly against the walls, casting shadows across the living room. Rachel and Erin lounged on the couch, scrolling on their phones, their laughter fading as the day dragged on. They thought they had wrung every ounce of joy from mocking me, that I had quietly taken my place in the background like I always did. But they were wrong. I rose slowly, steadying myself with the arm of the chair. My heart beat calmly, like it already knew this moment belonged to me. I have one more gift for you, I said. My voice was steady, almost too steady. Erin glanced up, smirking. Another scarf. Rachel rolled her eyes. If it's cookies, I'll scream. I didn't flinch. Instead, I walked to the cabinet by the window, the same cabinet where I'd hidden them away. I opened the drawer and pulled out 2 white envelopes, simple, unassuming, but heavier than anything they had unwrapped that morning. When I turned back toward them, their expressions shifted ever so slightly. Curiosity, suspicion, a flicker of unease. What's this? Rachel asked, her phone forgotten in her lap. Just one last thing, I replied, handing one envelope to each of them. Something I've been holding on to, something you deserve. They exchanged glances before tearing them open almost in unison. The silence that followed was sweeter than any carol. Rachel's eyes darted across the page, her smirk faltering, her face paling as she read. Erin's lips moved as he traced the lines on his paper, his expression twisting into confusion, then shock, then outright fear. What is this? Erin's voice cracked, louder now. I sat back down, folded my hands in my lap, and watched them squirm. It's freedom, I said softly. For me. And responsibility for you. Rachel slammed her envelope shut, her hands trembling. You canceled the transfers? The money you send every month? I nodded calmly. Gone. You're on your own now. I will no longer be your safety net. Erin's voice rose, desperate. You changed the will? The house was supposed to be mine. Yes, I said, meeting his gaze without blinking. It was. But not anymore. I've rewritten everything. The house, my savings, my estate, they're going to people who need it. Scholarships for children who actually value sacrifice. Charities for families who understand gratitude. Not to you. Not anymore. Rachel's face crumpled. You can't do this. We're your family. A laugh bubbled out of me, not cruel, but free. Family? Family doesn't tear each other down. Family doesn't laugh while one person sacrifices everything. Family doesn't call each other pathetic or a burden. Their silence was deafening. Aaron shook his head violently. You're bluffing. You wouldn't do this to us. You've always. Always what? I interrupted sharply, my voice cutting through the room. Always paid your bills? Always fixed your messes? Always given and given until there was nothing left of me. You're right, Aaron. That's exactly what I've always done. But not anymore. Rachel's lip quivered. For the first time all morning, she looked small. Evelyn, please. I need that money. You know I can't. I cut her off again. You can. You both can. You just never wanted to. The words landed heavy. Their faces once smug, full of cruel laughter were now pale, drawn, desperate. And oh, how sweet it felt. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees, my voice steady, calm, final. I gave up everything for you. My childhood, my dreams, my future. I was your sister, your mother, your provider, your protector. And all you gave me in return was insults. This Christmas, I gave myself a gift. The gift of freedom. And I will never apologize for it. Aaron ran a hand through his hair, pacing like a trapped animal. This isn't fair. Dad would never. I stood, my voice dropping low, sharp as glass. Dad isn't here. And you've done nothing to honor what he and Mom wanted. You don't get to use their memory as a shield while you tear me apart. Tears welled in Rachel's eyes, spilling down her cheeks. We'll do better. I swear, Ev. Just don't cut us off. Aaron dropped into a chair, his hands clutching the letter like it might disintegrate. Please, don't take the house. Don't do this. I looked at them, grown adults, reduced to begging by tooth in envelopes, and felt lighter than I had in decades. They weren't sorry for the way they treated me. They were sorry for the consequences. And that made all the difference. I picked up my coat from the back of the chair and slipped it on slowly. The Christmas lights flickered behind me, casting the room in a warm glow that felt almost holy. As I reached the door, I turned back one last time. You gave me insults this Christmas, I said softly. I gave you envelopes. And I think we both know whose gift will last longer. The silence in the room was absolute. For once, not a single cruel laugh, not a single mocking word. Just two siblings clutching papers that would change their lives forever. I opened the door, stepped out into the crisp winter air, and closed it behind me. The snow crunched beneath my boots as I walked away from the house, each step lighter than the last. For the first time in my life, I wasn't invisible. I wasn't a burden. I was free. And that was the sweetest gift of all. And now I want to ask you, my listeners, have you ever sacrificed for your siblings or family, only to be met with cruelty instead of gratitude? What would you have done in my place? Share your story in the comments, I'd love to read them. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this one.